Hello, my beautiful friends. Now, sometimes in life, there is this thing known as the car crash analogy, of where basically something absolutely tragic is happening, but you just can't help but keep staring. Like, no matter how horrific it is, there could be 16 people on fire, there's a mother screaming, and somebody's in pain. I don't know why I'm being so descriptive here, but basically, you just can't help but look at that tragic event. And today's topic is pretty much no different. This is something which, for some reason, has just completely encapsulated me. Like, my brain has been focused on this thing. I've been watching 6-hour live streams, 2-hour live streams, 50-minute videos kind of concluding everything that I've already heard in those 6-hour live streams. Basically, I have just been watching this entire thing in sheer awe of just, I honestly am kind of surprised, shocked, disturbed. I mean, I needed drama, and I feel like I've got more than Game of Thrones could have ever given me, or Breaking Bad. This is genuinely one of the most silly yet ridiculous, yet at the same time serious pieces of drama that I have ever seen. And of course, it is the downfall of Def Noodles. Now, Def Noodles is an online content creator which I'm sure a few of you have heard of. He's a big speaking point in the commentary community. He's a bloke that a lot of people have spoken about, had their criticisms of, but to be honest with you, over the last few years, I've actually admired the guy's work. Now, he pretty much covers the same topics as me, you know, he puts them down into more concise videos, he doesn't ramble as much as I do, and I've always kind of respected the grind that this guy has had. Like, despite the criticisms of the bloke, I've always admired the fact that no matter what, Def Noodles will always be the first guy to get to a story before anybody. Oh, and influencers in a little bit of a situation and predicament. I might make a video on that. Nope, not doing that because, shock horror, Def Noodles got there first. So yeah, I thought I would start this video by saying I'm not a fan of the guy, but I've definitely watched a lot of his videos, kept up to date with his coverage of things, and just in general, I've always admired the fact that this guy just seemingly does not stop working. So the question is why has he become so hated? Because it seems right now everybody and their dog is pretty much just exposing Def Noodles for absolutely everything. You've got the tea channels, you've got the commentary channels, you've got Moist Critical. I'm pretty sure everyone at this point other than me, I mean, I'm making the video right now, but up to this point, I'm pretty sure everyone but me has had their 2 cents on Def Noodles and what he has been doing. And my friends, I've just got to take my hat off to the, well, I'm not going to do that because I am extremely bored right now, but I've just got to give my compliments to the chef, my compliments to Def Noodles, because for the first time in human existence, human history, somebody has united the commentary channels, the tea channels, the Moist Criticals, the Keemstar, everyone, for once in a lifetime, has finally united over the opinion that Def Noodles isn't really a good guy. And what makes this so different is that during the last 2 years, a lot of the commentary guys, drama guys, just in general people in that community haven't really been too fond of Def Noodles, but the reason it's different is because now his own community have turned on him. It seems that it's very much a different scenario here because it's gone outside of the commentary sphere, and it just seems that now everyone is kind of turning against this guy. And the question is, why? Now today we are going to go through the start to the finish. I'm going to briefly explain how we've got here, everything that's happened. I'm not going to go into too much concise depth on a lot of situations because, to be honest with you, for one, there are like a million, but also there's just so many long videos and long streams that it would take years to go through. So I am just going to give a concise little brief rundown of everything without going into too much detail. But before we go into that, I do have the request, could you please subscribe, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of a threat right now. I don't know, you have bad luck for a million, just subscribe. Please do us a favor, it would really mean a lot. I'm not gonna bullshit you. Yeah, let's get into this. So where does this all begin? Well, we go to the year of 2019. Yes, the year of where I won the award for the world's most dodgy haircut. I'm not really sure what's going on here. I mean, I'm gonna make an apology and say I'm sorry. But that was also the year of where Def Noodles first started to appear, and it was also the year of where this video was made. Kavos made me want to quit YouTube.
I'm just going to be completely honest with you guys. I've just been kind of sad over the past few days, ever since that whole thing with Kavos, where he basically tore my channel apart. I appreciate all the positive feedback I got from all of you.
So this was pretty much the OG days of Def Noodles. Back then, this was when he was pretty much a reaction channel. He would comment and react and read memes from the internet and Reddit and Twitter and stuff like that. It's very different to what he was doing here. And in this video, he's responding to criticism of where Kavos on a live stream basically just says that his channel is a complete load of dog shit. And he wasn't happy with that. He was very upset with that. Now, this was pretty much the first time that I had ever seen Def Noodles. And I actually felt quite bad for him in this situation. Because to be honest with you, it's never nice to be told that your content isn't great. It's never nice to be making videos on the regular and somebody who's much bigger than you comes on and says, oh, you suck. Like, maybe you agree with Kavos in that video, but ultimately I'm still going to feel bad for the bloke because, you know, it's never really nice to see. But yeah, this was my first exposure to Def Noodles. But my friends, the reason I'm bringing all this up to you is because basically this little altercation that Kavos and Def Noodles had kind of actually spurred Def into making tea and commentary related content, because as you can see, the guy was making this content around the time of that altercation, but then a few months after that he started covering topics to do with Onision, Jake Paul, Brent Rivera. So basically Kavos is solely responsible for the creation of Def Noodles. But my friends, this is where things start to get weird, because now we need to speak about Def Noodles, but also Dennis. Now, you may be thinking, Fraser, these are the exact same human beings, just one's got a headset on, and I'd say, you know what? I mean, you're not wrong. These are the exact same human beings, but we need to take into consideration that apparently this is a character and this is a person. And my friends, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to be a horrible person for no reason here, but it seems basically from what everyone's discovered recently, the whole thing with Def Noodles is apparently this is a character, a comedic character created for comedic purposes. And I guess all of these videos are meant to be over-dramatic, over-dramatizations of situations. And I guess pretty much the entire thing by Def Noodles has been now played off as seemingly a little bit of a joke. And I'm going to be honest with you fellas, I've always thought that is... I can't lie, I've always thought it's a little bit bullshit. Like, I've always just thought it's stupid, it's silly, and I'm not gonna lie, I only discovered this thing a few months ago where Def Noodles is meant to be a satirical character for comedic purposes, and I've always just sat there thinking, I mean, where's the joke? You know, like, where's the joke? I mean, it doesn't seem satire. It seems that you are just a guy wearing headphones going through and speaking about topics just like how I do. I mean, if one day I was just like, guys, by the way, this is a comedic act, I'm sure somebody would say, well, it's a pretty shit comedic act because it's not funny. And I'd say, you know what? That's perfectly accurate, because this to me of Dennis and Def Noodles being two different things has always been very strange. Because whenever I hear like a YouTuber say, oh, I'm a character, you know, guys, this isn't actually me. This is a comedic satire. It's like, I've always seen that as an excuse. Now, not always. Like, take Filthy Frank, for example. Clearly a character, not actually who Joji is. I can accept that. But if somebody like iDubbbz came out and said, oh yes, my content cop videos were me playing a character, I'm going to be like, no, it was you playing an exaggerated form of yourself. That's not a character. It's still your opinions, it's still your takes, and you are still speaking about real things. And the same goes for Def Noodles. I've always seen people saying this sort of thing of being a character as just, in general, a little bit of an excuse. And that kind of moves us into 2021 Def Noodles, because basically in this time period, and even 2020, Def was pretty much accused of spreading multiple pieces of misinformation, getting stories wrong, and content creators like Nicholas Dorio made multiple videos speaking about this, and just in general, the commentary community started to pretty much get a little bit of a negative perception of this guy because they didn't think that he handled the stories in a correct way, and they just in general thought that the guy was putting a lot of misinformation out there. And I think people especially got irritated at things like that when Def claimed that this whole thing was a character designed to speak about the least serious stories possible, when it's like, I don't know, man, if you're speaking about specific real life stories that really impact other people, because as much as you may see these stories as silly, these do affect people's lives. Our videos do affect people and their business and their income and their livelihood. So I think to say that all your opinions on it and your coverage of it is satirical just sounds like an excuse to a lot of people out there. And to be honest with you, I can understand that, because if you are making videos like what we do, you do have to get stories right. And ultimately, everyone does get a story wrong every now and again. I've definitely done that. And it is something which it's difficult to avoid throughout your entire career. But basically, a lot of people were saying that Def does this regularly, and it became a very very, very big criticism of the bloke, but compared to now, it didn't really hinder him because his community still loved him, he had a lot of support, but now, as I said, Def has kind of just got absolutely seemingly nobody. And I do think a lot of this does come down to this character thing that Def likes to play off, that he is playing this little satire comedic character. I'll say it again, I didn't genuinely know that Def Noodles was meant to be a satire comedic character up until like a few months ago. It really blew my mind. Like, obviously he's being a bit exaggerated, but I never thought it was all meant to be satire, which is why I say it's an excuse. Like, if you're playing a satire comedic character, I don't think you should be covering topics to do with grooming, of where you're speaking about extremely serious allegations. I don't think a comedic character should be covering those things. And you may say, oh, are you censoring comedians making jokes? No, I'm not doing that, but the difference is this bloke wasn't making jokes. He was just going through stories whilst doing a few screen zooms here and there. And yeah, I bloody love screen zooms because I am on the cusp of being a millennial, but it doesn't make me a fucking comedian. It makes me a commentary channel that thinks screen zooms are funny. Is this funny? Maybe. I don't know. Is it funny to you? Let me know down below. But basically, what I'm trying to say here is you've got a lot of people criticizing this guy for misinformation, and then his, I guess, fallback is the character thing, and it has, at this point to around 2021, let a lot of people kind of not like this bloke, and that did lead to Def actually ending the character.
Well, I guess we finally got him, folks. It is the end of an era on this channel, and if you've been on this channel for over 2 years, then you know this channel has been through many eras, and right now is the end of the Minecraft cat era. And, you know, while I love the Minecraft cat, he just had to go, folks. You know, there are many reasons, but the biggest one is that he was restricting me creatively to a point where I just felt like I couldn't introduce new ideas into the channel. For anybody who watches these videos every single day, you know there's a very specific format to how the current era of Def Noodles videos are made and how they're presented, and I just had to, you know, break away from that. That being said, also my voice couldn't take it anymore. Doing that voice, it was seriously hurting my voice, and I felt like I was probably developing nodules. It was, it's not good.
Now, it might surprise a lot of you, but I actually can kind of understand where Def Noodles or Dennis is coming from in this situation. I can, because I do definitely see that the fact that this bloke definitely played an exaggerated version of himself in his videos in order to keep the attention of his audience, but that isn't playing a character. You are just being further exaggerated. I'm not gonna lie, outside of the real world, sorry, in the real world, I'm not going like this all the time and like speaking really loud constantly. This is definitely me being a bit more exaggerated and animated, but that's because this is my camera presence. Def, you had a camera presence. That's not a character. That's you just being a little bit more enthusiastic, energetic. And that's because if you went on videos and spoke like this, man, it would just be a little bit boring. And you probably wouldn't have that many subscribers. Because it's just boring, you know? Nobody wants to just sit there and hear. I mean, with a few people they do. But with a lot of people, you've got to be a bit more animated, a little bit more electric. And I think that's what you were. But to kind of conflate that with a character... I just died. To kind of conflate that with a character, to me, just seems very disingenuous, and it seems like an excuse. It seems that if anything was ever going to be critical towards you, if there was ever going to be a situation where you got something wrong and somebody called you out, it seems to me that that's just the fallback of, oh, this is meant to be a joke anyway, it's just a comedy act. It's like, it's not a comedy act. You are speaking about real situations on your channel, which you are making money from, which is fine, but to dub that as comedy isn't true. It's not like you're doing SNL where it is full satire, satirical spins of things. You are just basically reading the news. That's what you're doing in a fun way, which isn't a joke. And the reason I can distinguish the difference between you exaggerating yourself and a character is because I've had these conversations with other friends before. I mean, my old roommate James Marriott, me and him used to speak about this all the time, of he used to be very fast-paced in videos because he was more exaggerated, he was more electric and animated, but he didn't really enjoy that because it restricted him, so he started making different style videos of where he was just more of himself and less exaggerated, and I'm just going to play 2 examples.
When it comes to YouTube drama, I like to think of myself as somewhat of a windmill because I'm not really a fan. But I'm so tired of people making serious videos about other creators. This leaked Jeffree Star DM shows his true colours. Honey, if I wanted to see his true colours, I'd peel that cake off his face. If you know me well, you'd probably have realised by now that I'd rather slice my nuts off with a butter knife than make a serious video.
2 seconds later.
Hello everyone, so I've been on somewhat of a break from talking about influencer music. You can only drill a nail into your head so far until it starts to hurt. And just in general, there hasn't been that much to talk about. We had that big Bella Porch song that came out, Addison Rae, many Dixie D'Amelio songs. There I was complaining about everything and poof. It went away.
This doesn't mean that James Marriott from 2017 to 2020 was a character. It just means that he was a little bit more exaggerated and he just kind of wanted to stop doing that, which I think you also want to do. But to say that's a character very much comes off like an excuse, and I think a lot of people got very upset with that because, again, they saw that as an excuse for when Def ever got something wrong or said something silly, he would just fall back on that. So yes, this was always a big criticism of Dennis. He argued back against it in tweets like this, and people made their videos calling him out, and he would continue to fight back. And personally, as much as I disagreed with the character thing, I didn't at this point of time think the guy was a bad human being. Like, yes, there were clearly a few issues here and there, and I could understand the criticisms of the bloke, but at the time of 2021, I was still watching a video of his here and there, and I did still admire his work rate, and I did think, you know what, yeah, there's criticism, but ultimately, I'm just gonna sit back and still continue to watch because he's making the content which lets me know what's going on in the world, and I can appreciate that as long as I kind of put this character thing in my mind aside for a second here. Ignore that, just pretend that this just is a news channel, and I could vibe with that. And up until 2021, I did that. So this brings us to 2022, the year of... Well, I actually don't know what positive things have happened this year. My hair has certainly gotten better. I've had a hairline transplant thing. It's good, you know, kind of, maybe. But 2022, we're getting off topic here. It's okay for Def, you know. He started the year ultimately disliked by the commentary community, but the bloke still had the H3 community, seemingly. He still had his own community. And just in general, he was still liked until... Drums in the deep.
You have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
I really, oh man.
Platform you. I'm fucking
you literally like I literally explained why that was wrong, and your perspective is that joke was appropriate. You made the point that you thought that joke was okay, even though I disavowed the joke and tried to explain context, and now you're sitting here trying to deplatform me on it.
Tell me where the fucking tears are, motherfucker. You are fucking bullshit. You make these blanket fucking statements. People don't understand my comedy, and yet look at my funny following. Look at my fucking following. If people don't understand,
because they follow you, because they like how hateful you are.
Let me ask you a question. Is comedy subjective?
Papa Gut versus Def Noodles is probably the biggest part of the downfall of this guy, because pretty much this whole thing got escalated to points of where you wouldn't even think it should have went to, but it definitely did, and we will go through that briefly. But yeah, Papa versus Def. This was the thing which caused a lot of people to kind of turn on Def Noodles. This was the beginning of the downfall and the beginning of a lot of people in Def's own fan base turning against him, which, as I keep saying throughout this video, is a very important thing, because you can be disliked outside of your community, but the moment you're disliked in your community, that's when the downfall truly begins. And with this rivalry, well, not rivalry, but with this debate and arguments between Papa Gut and Def Noodles, it all stems from a certain situation involving a family channel. Yes, we love those on this channel. A family channel called The B Family. Now, basically, The B Family put out a video calling out a content creator called Killick for saying very inappropriate things about the daughter in The B Family. Basically, they said that Killick was pretty much a predator, and I completely agree with the fact that what Killick said was very, very wrong and very, very inappropriate, and I think Killick also agrees with that in hindsight. But yeah, this was a situation that Papa Gut and Def Noodles both covered. Both had very different takes. Def Noodles seemed to pretty much take the side of the B Family and back their points, whereas with Papa Gut, he did disagree with what Killick said, but he also had a very, very nuanced take when it came to this, where he acknowledged that the parents in the B Family were doing a lot of disingenuous things, according to him, such as intentionally misrepresenting the age of Killick. They dubbed him as a predator, which basically a lot of people agreed with Papa Gut that, yeah, that is a wrong thing to do. In the video, they titled it with "Dear Killick, Killick, she's only 15, represented him as a 19-year-old when Killick was actually 17. And when they went to rectify the story, they put in the description, oh yeah, he's actually 17, not 19. We didn't know that at the time of recording, which is just like, okay, maybe take down the video, and if you want to put out the information out there, make another video. But they didn't do that. They just changed the description, which to a lot of people was very disingenuous. Basically, what Papa Gut's argument was that there is this weird thing with the media of where a black person will seemingly do something wrong, but to make it look even worse, the media will intentionally misrepresent the age of said black person, in this situation Killick. And what Papa Gut was saying, that over the history of time, this has very much been a race-related thing of where people will do this to make black people look much worse, particularly young black men. And this is a very valid argument because this is definitely something that has happened throughout history. And Papa Gut was basically saying that he thinks that this is happening here again, and I think that is perfectly fine, because when you are misrepresenting somebody's age in a situation like that, that is very worrying, especially when you're deeming the person as a predator. And this was a big criticism that Papa Gut had. And then he criticized Def Noodles' video about this situation, and then Def Noodles made a response where he dubbed Papa Gut as an incel, and then Papa Gut responded and Def changed the title. And I'm not going to go much further into that situation, that was just a little brief explanation, but basically the reason that that has led to Def Noodles' downfall isn't because, oh, you know, his take was absolutely horrific and I think he's the worst person in the world. It wasn't actually that. It was nothing to do with an opinion on the B family. It was actually to do with a live stream that stemmed from that debate, basically where Papa Gut and Def Noodles sat down with each other, and Def Noodles got very, very angry, very, very heated, and it pretty much just, I guess, exposed Def Noodles for seeming very, very different to how he actually portrays himself to be online.
Tell me where the fucking tears are.
The second that I suggested that you weren't a good comedian because people don't understand your comedy, you melted
people
down.
Don't understand my comedy, dude. You're fucking bullshit. You make these blanket fucking statements. People don't understand my comedy.
Yeah.
And yet,
look at my
funny following. Look at my fucking following. If people don't understand,
because they follow you, because they like how hateful you are.
Let me ask you a question. Is comedy subjective?
Yes, it is subjective.
Exactly. So shut the fuck up.
Okay, you're right. That means that Killick was making a joke. Shut the fuck up. Boom. That's it. Your whole narrative proves that Killick was joking. You're agreeing that.
And yeah, this debate was not productive. This debate did not really lead to anything good other than Def Noodles seemingly becoming a little bit more disliked. And I'm not saying that was the good thing, but I'm saying that's the only thing that this debate actually led to, because it led to more and more drama, more tweets, more interactions, just things that people didn't really like to do with Def Noodles. And this debate was just another example of that, another example of people being surprised and exposed to the fact that this guy isn't who they really perceived him to be originally. And a lot of people were also confused by the whole comedic character aspect. And just in general, a lot of people were not happy with this guy's handling of the debate and this guy's just in general vibe. A lot of people thought that he was pretty much shutting down Papa Gut in any form of argument Papa would try and speak, and it would just turn into a bit of a shouting contest. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've never really been a fan of like live debates when it comes to, I don't know, commentary YouTube guys, and just in general YouTubers and streamers in general. Like, I know it is a loved concept, but for me personally, I'm never really going to usually see anything positive come from these things. And that's not because I have a negative perception of these guys. It's just in general, I think when you're a content creator like us, like when you are, your whole shtick is basically my opinion is right and you must listen. You've got to have somewhat of a level of like an ego to do that, to make this your whole full-time thing. And I'm not denying that, yes, I probably do have a little bit of an ego, because as I said, you do need to have an ego to just make your entire career your opinion. So I think with these live debates, it's very rare that you are ever going to get some form of like constructive criticism and people listening, and just in general two content creators who are opinionated coming to some middle ground. But in fairness to Papa Gut in this debate, I think that he actually was trying to do that. But from when I watched it, Def Noodles definitely wasn't willing to basically concede on barely any points. And at this point of time, as I said, I was still kind of watching this guy. I still like to consume his content, but I could clearly see that there was a little bit of a down a very big downfall happening here. And it was clear that a lot of his character that she doesn't really show on the internet was starting to show, and a lot of people weren't happy with that, and a lot of people were unsubscribing and starting to get upset in Def's own community, which is when things start to change. Because yes, you can be disliked outside of your own community, and usually that's fine. I'm sure I've got a lot of people that don't like me, but thankfully I've got a very, very brain-dead audience that for some reason like me, and Def was pretty much the same, but ultimately that's kind of changed, and we are now starting to get into that chapter. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was disappointed with this debate. As somebody that was fairly critical in my own mind of Def, I hadn't really said anything public up till this point, and it was just sad to see. I was like, yes, I don't agree with you on everything, and I think you can be a bit silly here and there, but I don't think you're a bad bloke. So to see stuff like this, it was disappointing me, and I want this video to come off like I'm not like dogpiling here, because I know that's why H3 didn't want to speak about this topic and didn't want it to become a dogpile, and I think it hasn't become that. I think there are fair criticisms of the guy, and I do kind of want to be fair and give my unbalanced opinion here where I don't come off as too much of a dick. But yeah, Def, he disappointed me in this debate, and I think he disappointed a lot of his own fans, and that did actually lead to Def Noodles making an apology.
I was in that mindset that I was like in this really aggressive, hostile environment because of everything that happened leading up to it, and I just wasn't as open as I should have been in that conversation, and as I typically am in most conversations. As you've seen, I genuinely thought it was going to be something that was aggressive and confrontational, and while there were aspects of confrontation, I do think that I happened to be instigating a lot of it and happened to be on the side of just not helping the conversation really be as conducive as it could have been, as conducive to, I don't know. I don't think I really helped anything, really. And yeah, as I said in the video itself, in the debate itself, I'm an idiot for that. I fucked up, and I wish I could take it back. I wish I could go back to the moments before all that happened, and I wish I could just calm myself down and think, hey, how about we just go in here and just try to have a positive conversation, and regardless of the direction that it goes, just try to hear him out and try to understand what he's saying. And even though I actually do agree, I mean, we pointed out in that debate that we do agree on several points. I do think that I didn't help it out. So I want to apologize for everyone who had to see that. I want to apologize to Papa Gut for treating him that way.
And look, I know in hindsight, a lot of people can say that apology is definitely bullshit, and I myself now do have criticisms of that apology, especially with things that happened weeks after that. But based on what Def is saying there, I can understand, because when it comes to live debates, I don't think I could ever do one, just because I'm a very, very anxious person, and I like to articulate my points by building them over time in edited long-form videos. If I went on a live stream, I'd probably fucking lose to absolutely anybody. Like, if I debated a 7-year-old, I'd probably lose, just because it's very hard for me to think and speak on the spot, especially without getting emotional. And with this situation, it's clear he was saying that he thought he was coming into a hostile environment, and that kind of amped him up and made him seem much worse. So I can kind of understand where he's coming on here. A hostile atmosphere, even if there isn't one and you just convince yourself one, can definitely fuck with you. So I do, on one hand, have to give props to the guy and Papa Gut for actually having the willingness to come on a live stream. It sounds like a little bit silly, but I can imagine that's a very stressful thing, and to both of them, I can appreciate the fact that they do have the balls to do that, but obviously it hasn't helped Def Noodles whatsoever, and this has just led to more and more people disliking the guy, because as I said, the way he handled the debate was very aggressive, it was very loud, it was very dismissive of all of Papa Gut's arguments, and made people think that this guy just isn't who they thought he was. So yeah, after this, things kind of went quiet. Like, people still had their criticisms of Def Noodles, but as I've said throughout this video, it was kind of just in the commentary sphere. It was kind of in a community that were always critical of the guy, so his community didn't really care. Nothing really changed in there. People were making videos on the bloke, but to be honest, it wasn't really impacting him. But then it all changed when, well, Twitter. That's all I'll say. basically, Def Noodles got banned from Twitter like a year ago, but now he has his account back. And the thing is with Twitter, my friends, is Twitter is the fucking worst website on planet Earth. I don't know what it is with that website, but it just kind of incentivizes you to give the worst possible opinions on fucking anything. Like, even stupid things. Like, you could see people debating what chocolate bar is best, and for some reason you would be incentivized to giving an opinion on a chocolate bar that you don't even think is your real opinion, but for some reason on Twitter, we just sometimes get in those moods and those scenarios, and I am guilty of that of myself. Sometimes I will tweet an opinion and then come back to it a week later thinking, why did you say that for, you bloody moron? It happens a lot. So now I have actually deleted Twitter from my phone so I don't fall victim to that. And the only time I'm ever going to give my opinion on the internet is if I can slap free mid-rolls on it. I'm joking, but I'm not. But I will never, well, maybe I will. I will only give my opinions on Marvel films on Twitter. I like to keep my opinions in my videos and my live streams because I feel like I can articulate myself better. With Twitter, it's very difficult to articulate yourself because you're limited to a certain character count. So you have to basically argue in sound bites, which isn't productive in any way, and it has only contributed to Def Noodles' downfall even more because his Twitter account is just at the peak of controversy right now. The bloke just keeps going on random rants about Papa Gut where he just says shitty things here and there, even stuff like how he actually made Papa Gut's career pretty much by giving him crumbs in a debate, which is a bit fucking weird, mate, because you just made an apology to the bloke a few weeks ago. So it's like, what is it? Is this apology real, or are you just in general a disingenuous little bellend? Because to be honest with you, when I see statements like that, I think, fuck me. Fuck me, man. You're a grown dude. And that's another thing. Apparently, the bloke's been lying about his age. I'm not really going to go in specifics there. But, you know, apparently he has. And it's like, you're a grown dude. Clearly, you're a grown dude. And just making statements like that, it's like, come on, mate. The whole point of what we do and giving our opinions is that we're meant to be the mature ones. Now, I understand that's not always going to be the case. It would be a bit difficult for us to always be mature and always have the correct opinions. But we're going to put ourselves on these pedestals. Making stupid statements like that, it's just a little bit fucking pathetic, to be honest with you. It made me see that and think, Jesus Christ, man. And it's just disappointing, and it's another case of Twitter just in general melting people's brains. But then it gets even worse when you look at other tirades that's been going on recently, where he says things like MF got famous on TikTok for joking about effing minors, then gets offended somebody makes jokes about him. But you know, he was right. I shouldn't have said that. I should have instead said he has made himself so small in his videos to hide the fact he looks like a pedo. And look, I'm not a comedian, I'm not a master of comedy or anything, but for a comedian, I am yet to laugh. But also, there is a lot of context removed from this. Now, I disagree with the joke in reference here, but so does Papa Gut. Basically, what's being referenced here is that Papa Gut had a TikTok account of where he made a satirical joke and call out of Andreas Lopez, who is allegedly a nonce. Now, what he says in that video is inappropriate and a bad joke, but the context has been removed that it was a satirical call out. Now, I know we've been speaking about satire a lot in this, but I think in that case, satire and comedy is an actual pretty valid excuse. You don't need to agree with the joke being made in general, but like it's clear that Papa Gut obviously isn't, you know, making jokes about. He's clearly not doing that. He's clearly calling out somebody for actually allegedly doing that. And I think this has made a lot of people out there very, very upset with Def Noodles, because it seems that it goes back to the other criticisms of Def Noodles removing context from situations, from Def Noodles getting stories wrong. That was the original criticism of the bloke back in 2020 and 2021, and now it seems he's doing it about a peer, a fellow content creator that makes pretty similar content and speaks about similar things, and this obviously made a lot of people upset and angry. And the thing is, when it comes to Papa Gut, it makes it even worse, because Papa Gut is actually a content creator that I think speaks about predators probably more than any other commentary creator. This is a guy that regularly covers this stuff. Pretty much any story he will speak about, and whilst I have disagreed with him on things here and there, and he disagreed on me on things and stuff like that, I can't doubt that this guy cares about these things probably more than anybody in this sphere, in this community. I think when Papa Gut speaks about predators, he clearly cares. He clearly has a passion for speaking speaking about those things and making sure that there are less issues in these communities when it comes to predators, deplatforming them, getting rid of them. And to me, it really proves that when you take a look at Papa Gut's actual response to what Def said and how he's handling these situations, because Papa Gut did break down in tears about this, and it really shows to me that the guy actually really does care.
What do you think about when you talk about topics, Dennis? When I sit down and I talk about topics of sexual assault, I think about every single survivor who's reached out to me and who said, this really fucked me up, Dennis. That's what I think about. And I hear these women and they tell me, you know, he wasn't a bad guy and he didn't even realize what he was doing. They asked me questions. They asked me, do you think that I was... After telling me a horrific situation, that's what they tell me, Dennis. That's what I think about. Every single time that I try to have these conversations with these young men is because I don't want another person to get violated. That's what I think about. What do you think about, Dennis, when you talk about this shit? What goes through your fucking head? This is a joke to you. It's a game to you.
Now, this was obviously a very raw response, and I genuinely think it's nice to actually see somebody have this level of real emotion and passion, in particular when it comes to a topic so serious as predatory behavior and SA. And clearly, the guy has had a lot of personal experience speaking to actual victims and survivors about this stuff, but it gets way worse when you then see how Def Noodles responded to that. He started selling a photo of Papa Gut crying in that video on a t-shirt. He actually put this photo on a shirt and thought it would be a good idea to monetize Papa Gut crying about his experience with survivors of sexual assault. Like, it's so unbelievably grim. And at this point, I have been very charitable towards Dennis. I've been very charitable in saying that, you know what, I do feel a little bit bad for you. I do think that in some cases, maybe people have been a little bit too harsh, but ultimately, this is indefensible. This is just sick. And yeah, this led to a lot of criticism, naturally so. A lot of people were getting angry. A lot of people in Def's own community were seeing this and thinking, this is just absolutely indefensible. And then it basically just turned into the fucking Avengers version of the commentary YouTube community. You've got Adam McIntyre agreeing with Nicholas Diorio. You've got him agreeing with T-Channels agreeing with Keemstar agreeing with Kat Tembridge, and half of you, if you're hopefully not chronically online, don't know who any of those people are, and you're only subscribed to me. But basically, for somebody that is fucking stupidly chronically online like myself, it is pretty much an Avengers level event of where everyone just groups together to fight a common enemy. It's so stupid. And like, I get there are so many dark actual pieces to this story, but when you're watching it from the outside, before I made any of these videos, I'm not going to find this as entertaining anymore because I am making a video, so I have dumped myself into it. But it is so fun and funny to watch, despite how dark it is from the outside. I know there are a lot of sensitive things going on here, but you can't help but just see this and think, fuck me. Out of every piece of drama and situation in the world, I never expected Def Noodles to unite everybody that seemingly hates each other. But then with all of that, it led to another confrontation between Def Noodles and Papa Gut in a 6-hour Twitter Space live stream. And the wonderful thing about Twitter Spaces is that basically, if you listen to them, your big fucking icon appears right at the top. And I don't mean to flex people, but I am verified, so I appear right at the top. And you could just see me in there for like an hour, lurking, saying nothing, contributing nothing. But it is always a little bit embarrassing when people can just see you lurking there. But yeah, this confrontation did make Papa Gut and Def speak to each other live again. And it did actually result in Def Noodles taking down the shirt and also giving his reasoning for selling the shirt, which to me personally is just a bit of a bullshit reasoning.
I didn't even watch the clip long enough to know that that's what you talked about. I watched the part where you said, this isn't a joke, Dennis, and then you go and you start crying. and then I have to get back to work.
I mean, the video of Papa Gut crying, he cries right at the ending of the video. So if you did watch up until that point, I would be a little bit confused to how you didn't hear of what he was actually getting emotional and upset about. It was very clear that throughout that entire video, up until, I mean, maybe not until like the 4th minute mark, but for the majority of the video, the guy was speaking about his experience with speaking to survivors of SA. And you didn't realize that? I just think that's utter bullshit. And if you didn't realize that, then what are you doing? Like, seriously, your first thought of seeing somebody you don't like cry is to monetize that on a shirt? I mean, that behavior is actually fucked. And like, I'd say it's chronically online, but it's just not that. It's just you being a bad person. It's not nice. And I'm glad you've taken it down. But honestly, how am I meant to believe that you didn't know what this screenshot was about and the context behind it? And I guess this does go back to the original criticism of context once again being removed from certain situations. But yes, the shirt was taken down, and you know, that would be all good and all if that was it. But also there were some weird comments made throughout that live stream of where Def pretty much accuses Papa Gut of weaponizing victims' trauma, and it's just like, bro, you need to log off and relax.
Yes, the joke is the trauma, so how can I not use the trauma as part of the defense?
Trauma, though. Someone else's trauma. Please talk about it. Like, how would you respond without using that trauma?
I wouldn't, because it's it's something that's very real that like is very upsetting to me. What are you talking about?
You understand what you're doing? You're weaponizing.
I'm not weaponizing anything. I'm not weaponizing. You're telling Dennis.
Trauma.
Okay.
You're weaponizing someone else's trauma to try to score sympathy points.
Was he weaponizing trauma, or was he having an emotional response to speaking about victims and survivors that he's spoken to in his past because Papa Gut clearly cares about those victims? Was he weaponizing those victims, or was he getting upset that he doesn't think you, somebody that speaks about things like SA, like grooming, like victims and survivors, seemingly doesn't actually care? I don't think that this guy is weaponizing victims at all, and in fact, I think what he's doing here, him crying and showing emotion, is him actually showing even further how much he cares about these topics. And now I'm not going to go through the rest of this space, because to be honest with you, it's very, very fucking long, and I imagine this video is getting longer than I actually intended it to be. But basically, this live space resulted in a lot of people, including Def's fans, starting to turn on him. You can go to comment sections and see comments like this, saying, Dennis is dishonest and unintelligent, and I'm happy everyone sees through him. The fact that Def Noodles wants a mediator when this was a personal discussion about him invalidating SA shows how much of a fool and coward he is, and I'm so glad Papa didn't let Def steamroll him like the last time. And my abusive ex talks exactly like Def. You're talking in circles, you can't have an actual conversation, pivoting away from things I wanted to hold him accountable for, and would victimize himself because of how upset I'd be after he was abusive to me. It is triggering at times after watching the way Def talks to you, because I know a very bad person who talks and acts very similarly towards me when I allowed him in my life. And yeah, I can't deny any of these criticisms. Like, when you go back and watch all of these streams and responses, you can't help but see somebody very self-victimizing, somebody that really isn't willing to, I hate the phrase taking accountability, but honestly taking accountability. Like, this whole thing started off very silly. I don't think it needed to go any further than the Kiddick drama, but it's just gotten to this point of where Def is seemingly self-destructing, and now even bigger creators outside the space like Critical are speaking about this stuff, and it's just absolutely insane that we've gotten here just because this guy isn't willing to just kind of be like, you know what, I hold my hands up, I've done wrong here and I'm going to do better. I mean, he doesn't even need to do that. He could just stay silent and improve over time, but no, he's just got to continue to self-destruct, which just makes this even more crazy. And you know, since that live stream, Def has responded further by making videos titled Addressing the New Allegations, which, as you can see on his own channel, has a lot of dislikes, and that's probably because in this video he does the insane thing of now, rather than attacking people criticizing him, he attacks his fans.
If you're ever curious about who these winos are, just click on the profile of some of these people claiming to be fans in the comments and expressing concern. You can see their comment history, and from that you will quickly find out that some of the people with the most opinions and criticisms about my content, who present themselves as fans or former fans, have never in fact actually enjoyed my content and are just jumping on the hate bandwagon to gain attention or whatever else motivates these trolls.
Hey man, I have never made a video about you before. I've, commented on a few videos about you, spoken about you here and there, maybe jumped in a chat, once or twice in my whole career. But I've made like 8,000 videos about James Charles or Shane Dawson. I am openly very critical about them, and sometimes I do feel bad, and I feel even a bit bad for not going as hard in this video, and that's probably because we do have the same career type. We both speak about these things, so I can understand the pressure to an extent, and I have more empathy and understanding in the situation. But there is no fucking grand conspiracy with your fan base when it comes to criticism. I think that you need to take a break from the internet, because you are now acting like your fans have grouped together and created this weird theory of where they were never fans of you in the first place because they're criticizing you. Man, have you ever just realized that the internet, the whole internet, is now looking at you and laughing and criticizing? You've now got critical making videos on you laughing at you. I don't think this is just a, oh, everyone's wrong and I'm right situation. Like, how fucking often does that happen? It's very rare, to be honest with you. And I think in most cases where everyone thinks you're a bellend and you're the only one that doesn't think you're a bellend, the most, conclusive answer to that is probably you are a bit of a bellend, and maybe you should just hear the fact that everyone thinks that and just think, you know what, maybe some people are right. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think a lot of people probably have said some unnecessary things over the last few years, and that probably has prompted me to kind of not speak about you as much, but I don't think that everything here is bullshit. I think there are some very valid criticisms of you, and maybe you should just take that and think, yeah, you know what, that's fair, and I'm going to learn from that. I don't even think you need to make a video responding to any of these things. I just think if you put it in your mind and start to learn, listen, and change personally as a human being, that's great. I'd rather you not make a video speaking about these things, and I'd rather just see actual real change, because it's very easy to make a video being like, oh, guys, I'm going to change, I'm going to get better. But the reality is the hardest point of actually changing is showing change through your day-to-day actions, through showing it as you as a human being, rather than coming from a script, rather than coming from an edited YouTube video. It's just much harder to actually show it in your day-to-day personality. So Def Man, please listen to this. As somebody that doesn't hate you, as somebody that doesn't think you're an evil human being, just listen to me and realize that as someone on the outside from the commentary community, I think that you are going down a bad path, a path of where it could become irreversible. I think right now you can change things, but it will be difficult. And I think, man, you just need to relax, take a few weeks off. If you want to DM me, I'm always here to chat. As emotional, as deep as that sounds, I am always here if you want a chat. I know we're not mutuals, but you never know. Maybe we could have a balance. There's not a live stream, just a chat, because honestly, I see erratic behavior like this sometimes, especially from somebody that hasn't actually committed any crimes, and I think it is worrying. I think this genuinely is a place of where I don't think this guy is actually doing very well, and I think he's clearly having some form of a breakdown based on all of the videos and all of his responses and everything, on all of his tweets of him seemingly, I guess, telling people to end their lives or something. It's not good. It's not good, and I think you need to relax and chill. And the reason this video is so rambly is just because I have so many opinions, and I am just honestly a little bit concerned despite all of my criticisms. 2 months ago, nobody really knew who this guy was, but 2 months later, it seems that so many people outside of this community now see this guy as like this pretty much deranged lunatic who isn't really the best at comedy and stand-up. Like, it's mental, but this is ultimately what we've gotten here. We now have a recipe for disaster. After absolutely everything, it does just seem that this is the downfall, and I think there is only so much bad press until you are kind of deemed as like a permanently disliked creator. When a content creator turns on their fans, that's when you know things are going a little bit silly. That's when you know things are actually getting a little bit ridiculous. It's kind of like the ending of Onision was when his fan base ultimately turned on him, and now whenever you see someone speak about Onision, it's always, oh, I was a former fan of this guy, but now I pretty much hate him. And I'm not saying that Onision and Def Noodles are any way the same, but I'm just saying whenever I have seen a fan base turn on somebody, that is when the downfall ultimately happens, and this is the downfall of Def Noodles. I think the guy probably can recover whatever he has built, but ultimately it's gonna be difficult. And as I said previously, my only bit of advice would just be to take a break, relax, take in everything said about you, and then go away for a bit, maybe go on a holiday, see your family, see your friends, because it is very easy to get wrapped up in this drama sphere. It's very easy to just in general say stupid things, think you're constantly right when you're constantly logging on Twitter, when you're constantly logging on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, and all it is just this same thing. It's your day-to-day life. Like, being an influencer, it's fun, it's a great job, but ultimately the one negative downfall is that your job is 24/7. Like, as much as it's great, obviously you can never really get too much of a detachment, and I think sometimes that can really fuck you up and actually make you somewhat of a worse person. And I think that has actually happened to me in the past. I've made videos or said things which I've just been like, why? I like 3 months later, I'm just looking at that thinking, your opinion there, it just seems to not be what I have now. And maybe that's because I've changed my opinion, but ultimately getting so wrapped up in these things can kind of make you actually not who you are. And I think with Def Noodles, that's very much a case here, because when you go back to that Kavos video we spoke about at the beginning, I could actually see a genuine human here that did just want to make content for his fans that they would enjoy. And I think since then, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. So I am going to say, despite all my criticisms and despite how fucked some of the things Def Noodles has said and done in the last 6 months, I do wish the best for him in a weird way. I know some people won't like that, but you know, I'm trying to be a little bit more fair and just say, Def Noodles, please, for the love of God, just stop. Please don't take me being fairly charitable as a defense of Def, though. That's definitely not what I'm trying to come across as here. I definitely do condemn all the things that I've spoken about in this video, but I do just think that I can come from a different perspective to usual because, you know, Def makes fairly similar content to me. Ultimately, I pretty much at this point don't really like the guy. I've got a very negative opinion on him, but at the same time, I can kind of see why he has gone down this path. That is the end of this long rambly video. I do hope you enjoyed it. It may be a little bit less edited because I wanted it to be a little bit more raw. I hope you understand that. We will go back to more deep dives and conclusive, faster paced things next video. I just kind of wanted to give my 2 cents on this because it does actually, you know, impact me in a way. It does make me think a lot about my own career and stuff. So yeah, I hope you kind of understand why I'm kind of coming at this at a weird kind of angle that I do in my other videos. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please like this video, please subscribe, and please comment your thoughts down below because I genuinely would love to hear your perspective on all of this. My Twitter is inabber69, second channel is inabber live, Instagram inabber, it's all there in the description. Thank you for coming along, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, and have a cracking day, weekend, whatever day it is. I don't really care. Bye bye.